In this session, I'll be talking about creating the lists, working with the lists in R. Now, there are different kinds of data types. We have seen vectors, right? We have seen factors. We have seen matrices, arrays. These are different kinds of data types, right? In the later sessions, I would also be talking about in-depth of data frame, though we have touched based upon the data frame earlier, but I will be talking about the data frames also at a later point. List, one more major data type that we see in R. It's nothing but it's a bundle of different vectors, right? That's a straightforward stuff. But the only thing is, each vector could be of a different type. So if one is character type vector, the other one is logical type vector, the other one is a numeric kind of vector, all of them can be bundled together into a list. And the other important part is even the lengths could be different, right? That is the goodness of a list. Whereas in case of a data frame, I require the lengths to be the same, right? Each vector could be of a different type, but as a data frame, I want the vectors to be of the same length. But in case of list, even that flexibility is there. My vectors can be of different lengths altogether. So let me create a few set of vectors A, B, C, D kind of stuff. Right, we'll create with different kinds of variables. Let's say I am creating a vector A containing just numbers 1 to 5. I'll create another vector B which is containing some text K, L and M. Only 3 characters I am creating. Right? Then I am creating another vector C which contains logical values true, true, false, true, 4 values. Right, the first one contains 5 values, the second one contains 3, the third one contains 4, and probably D is another vector probably containing let's say imaginary values 3 plus 2i, 5 minus 3i, different kinds of 3 plus 2i. Okay, D is not correctly defined. So D is 3 plus 2i comma 5 minus 3i. So D is being defined as. So these 4, with you see that each of them has a different data type, right? Different data types. One is a numeric or an integer. One is a logical. One is a string, which is a character kind of a type. And the last one is complex. Now there are different types and even lengths 2, 3, 4, 5. I can bundle all of them into a list. So I'll create something called items where I am bundling these 4 into a list A, B, C, D. All these 4 I am calling it as a list. That's a simple way of defining the list. And subscript. Now if I have to access the second one, the second item which is B of the list, what do? I'll say items. I'll use double square bracket. For list, it's not a single square bracket, I'm using double square bracket. Double square bracket 2 brings out the element that are associated with the second item of the list, which is KLM. Now let's say of that I want the second element of the second items. This is where on the top of this I'll simply put a single square bracket. Now that the list came out, I simply want to extract the second element out of that list, which is just filling out L. So that's the way we access the list. The first square bracket directly talks about the location of the item as a part of the list. Now probably in this, okay, instead of 2, I say C1 comma 2. So I want both the first as well as the second. So it is telling me that C1 comma 2 is giving me something to do with the first row and the second column. First row, second column, the item is, out of the first list, I'm talking of the second, which is working out to be the number 2. So I can access the things even through this kind of a mechanism. Whereas when we are creating subscripts on vectors or matrices or any other thing, we were using only single square bracket, whereas in case of lists, we are using the double square brackets. The other important thing is I can access the list even through the dollar operator. Right? For that, I'll have to define the names. Okay, let's define the names itself. So the same items, instead of keeping them as ABCD, I'll say list, right? Probably X is the name that I'm giving, or probably I can say first. First equal to A, second equal to B, third equal to C, fourth equal to D. I'm giving different names to these items. Now when I'm listing out items, you see that the name first comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, second comes KLN, third comes true, true, false, true, fourth comes as this. Now on the top of it, I can very well find out, let's say I want to access the third, I can use something like this. Items, and I can give the name. Items $third will give me the elements that are associated with the third row or the third item of the list. So that's the way to access the list. One, I can give it as a subscript, and based on the subscript I can extract the values. Two, I can even give them the names, and I can access through the names also. Now, very common kind of command that you can apply on the list. You can check the class of the items. Okay, let me say class of the different items of the list. So it's a list. The items is being created as a list. Now I'll take the mode. What does the mode tell me? The mode is also saying that it is the list. So is list length. Length is interesting thing. So if I am finding out the length of the items, the length as a meaning tells me that there are 4 different kinds of items as a part of the list. It is not telling me the internal stuff, right? It's talking of the number of items present in the list, not the lengths of the individual vectors that got composed of the list. So the number of vectors that went into the creation of the list is what it typically talks of when I'm using the length. It's not the length of the individual vectors. Now, if I really want the length of the individual elements, this is where we'll use lapply. Lapply is applied to each and every item of the list. Each and every element of the list, you apply a function. Now this is where if I want for individual elements, I'll use lapply. Lapply all the elements of the items. What is that I want to find? I want to find the length. So it says the first one is having a length 5, the second is having a length 3, the third is having 4, and fourth is having 2. Similarly, I can find out each element if I want to know what is the class. Right, because one of them is a complex and all that stuff is there. So I want to find for each individual element. If I am applying class of items, it will give me list. But if I want to know what is the class of each of the individual elements, I'll go with lapply. integer, character, logical, complex. Similarly, okay, if I want to do some kind of calculation, of course on some of them I can't do because they are not numbers, but still if I really want to experiment it to see how it comes, you see for the first one, because it's a numbers, it has computed the mean. The second one, because they are characters, it said NA. Third one, logical, internally it does ones and zeros, and based on that it has given me the mean. And the same one in case of fourth also, it has computed the mean. So wherever it is possible it will compute, and wherever it can't, it will give me a NA. Now, the other important function that you can apply on the list is knowing the entire content of the list. So this is where I'll use string. So str is more like a kind of a summary with respect to the list. Now if you see here, there are a list of 4 items. The first is the name. It's an integer from 1 to 5. These are the values. The second, it's a character. There are 3 values in it, KLM. Third is logical. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 values are there. True, true, false, true. And the fourth is complex with these values. So lists also sometimes, especially if your data is not that organized in a tabular format, it may be very much essential that you may have to access your data through the list. And in some cases you want to apply the formulas at the entire list level, and in some cases you may want to apply the formulas at the individual vectors associated with the list. So wherever you are applying formulas and functions and the individual vectors associated with the list level, you are using lapply, but if it is at a complete overall list level, you don't need lapply, right? So just to get a hold on it, when we are doing the applications, we'll look at them in more detail at a later point. So if you have any further queries up to here, you can get back to me by giving me a call on the number that I have provided below, or you can even send in an email at vamsidhar@pacegurus.com. Thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.